Welcome back for another episode of Straight Up with Dr. C Love. I am Dr. C Love, and it's a privilege to be here with you today. So let's get it started. Invocation taken from Loyalty to Your Soul, the Heart of Spiritual Psychology, written by Drs. Ron and Mary Holnick. Lord God of all creation, we ask just now that we be cleared, filled, surrounded, and protected with the clear light of the sacredness of spirit. We ask for the presence, protection, guidance, and love of the divine beings who work with each of us. And we ask that any imbalances that may be present in our consciousness be taken up into the highest realms of light and sound, where it may be transformed and used in service. We are so grateful for this opportunity to come together in service to our growth, upliftment, and learning as we assist ourselves and each other on our way home. Thy will be done. So be it. Straight up. Let's get into it. In the news. We know, if you were paying attention, Damar Hamlin was at the game and is watching it, so he's doing well. Thank God. Last week we sent light out to Lisa Marie Presley. You know, I said, and speaking of Lisa Marie, that I didn't know exactly what was going on, but that let all of the believers around the world just send her lots of light. And we don't know from moment to moment what that will look like. So I think of Priscilla Presley. So we learned, if you were paying attention in the news, that after she had the first cardiac arrest, by the time she had gotten to the hospital, they said that she had limited brain activity. So the family made that hard decision to sign a DNR. If you don't know what a DNR is, that's like do not resuscitate. So they were suspending, medical technology has grown such that it can do a lot of things. And so they decided to sign the DNR, do not resuscitate, meaning that if she had that other thing that could possibly happen, to let nature have its way. And it turned out she actually did have a second heart attack. And with that second heart attack, she moved to Graceland. So Lisa, we celebrate your spirit. It must have been really hard finding your father passed away at 9 years old. I was 23 when I found my grandmama Henny, and I wasn't ready. So I cannot imagine what it felt like carrying something like that from the age of 9. And as we look around the world, I know there's a lot of things going on. And I wanted to share a meditation from a book entitled A Time to Grieve, Meditations for Healing After the Death of a Loved One, by Carol Strade. I'm sorry, I apologize, Carol. Stradaker. You can correct me. Feel free to correct me. But I wanted to share this piece. And this book was actually sent to me by a dear friend when I was going through yet another one of the griefs in my life. But it says, I don't want to talk. I don't want someone to talk to. I want someone to be here, to sit with me and not expect me to talk. Silence may be as variously shaded as speech. Edith Wharton. Although it is extremely important to communicate through conversation when we are grieving, it is sometimes just as important to remain silent or quiet. We may have very strong need to sit silently and review the events surrounding the death, to recall things our loved one did, or said. Or we may wish to attempt to sort out confusing aspects of our loss, to try to make plans, or just feel sorry for ourselves. Such needs and desires are perfectly normal and acceptable. All of this, all of this silence sorting out makes a vital period that may last a few weeks or much longer. For some of us, silence is a major reaction to loss, and the majority of the time, silence should be honored and respected by others. Friends may help us by coming and sitting quietly, making a cup of tea, or joining us in a quiet walk. And it isn't wrong for us to ask for that. We don't have to entertain our visitors. It is okay to desire someone's presence, but at the same time, to wish for that person to remain silent with us. When I want someone to share a silence with me, to sit quietly in the same room, to go for a walk without having a conversation, or to hold my hand or put his or her arms around me, I will ask for that. I deserve to be nurtured in silence, to receive gestures of reassurance. When my mental and emotional rhythm calls for silence and warmth, I will respect that need and do my best to fulfill it. Thank you, Carol. That's really beautiful. It brings me to one of my own experiences. So when my twin brother died, again, that was I had had other losses, cousins and different people that were in the family. But when my twin, Garnett, left at 18, that was life-altering devastation. And he's a man of faith. So Colonel Garnett Henning Jr. at the age of 16 gave his life to Christ and declared his path in the ministry. And or before that, because he gave his first sermon when he was 16 in November 1986. Excuse me, we were 16. Anyway, so after he left, oh, by the way, the title of his first sermon, Youth, What Are You Waiting For? Stand up. A message as relevant today as it was then and decades before. But in dealing with grief, in walking that, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, one of the things that stood out to me that actually directed my course and taught me how to sit in silence was processing all of the loved ones and well-wishers that would say things to me like, he was chosen, he was ready, he's in a better place. For me, processing that at 18, I didn't know how. I was like, so I'm not chosen, I'm stuck in this hellhole, and whatever the other one was, my thoughts were always somehow I had to work to prove myself worthy of this. By the time they finished, honor that had been bestowed upon him, that he could graduate from this life. And somebody might look at that and say, what? But just think about it in context. I was a kid. I didn't understand how to process that. So as the years have gone on, and it's been just a couple since then, I know I look like I'm just a little over 18, that I didn't do that anymore. I didn't say things to people. I would just kind of give them a hug and just say, no, my heart is holding yours. We love you. If you need anything, let me know. And actually, now that I'm reflecting on it, I would even just say, I'm here, and be quiet. So when you are dealing with someone dealing with grief, it's a lesson and an opportunity for you as light workers, to simply hold the light. Hold the light, and to find your comfort in silence and know that your presence speaks volumes. All right. So Just wanted to add that. Next up, I'm gonna change this background. My mother was like, I hear you, but let's do something different. So here we go. Hey, you like this one, mama? Let's talk about some other stuff in the news. So we've had a lot of different things going on. I think I'm gonna combine um, a couple of them or pull them out. For those of you all who've been following the hip hop industry news, we know that there had been an incident sometime, I believe last year, between Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez, where he was leaving a party at one of the they were leaving a party at one of the Kardashians' houses, and something happened within the vehicle after an evening of partying, and a gun was fired, and Megan Thee Stallion ended up needing surgery on her feet. It's been a lot of talk on both sides. People took sides. This is true, not true, and all of those things. And nobody except those people who were there involved actually will know all the details. And the result of the initial court case came out that Tory Lanez was convicted of those things that were related to her injuries. But for me, as an educator dealing with young people, and also this work with people post incarceration and so on and so forth, I always wonder how much drinking, drugs, play a part in crimes that are committed. And then also the idea that definitely drinking, drugs, and guns do not mix. I mean, so when you have those in there, and do we as a community, as a society, have crime statistics or incarceration statistics that will give us greater insight into who is incarcerated for a crime that was committed while they are under the influence? Why is this important? Well, in the state of California, it costs about $70,000 a year per inmate, the last time that I checked. $70,000 per inmate per year. It usurps what's being spent per child for education and arts and all of these other things, and giving people different avenues to get high, different avenues to escape through the arts, to express yourself, to use our light in the world in a different way. And having those statistics might be valuable community information. I mean, straight up. We might want to know how many people made a bad decision one night, and then we paying for them at $70,000 a person for the next 15, 20, or lifetime years, 3, 4, 5. Still, if it's $70,000 in this 3 years, we already at $210,000 for that one individual. And do we really know how many people are in jail anyway? And you can't talk about the prison system without talking about the rehabilitation system. Takes me back to what I was sharing with you all last week about how I had the educational program of reintegration within the construct of the homeless shelter community center that I was operating in South Los Angeles in the 90s. Just something to think about. All right, on to the next. Let's talk about I don't know what to exactly call it, but like Ukraine and Russia, U.S.-Mexican border, gang violence, so Crips, Bloods, that whole thing that's going on. Let's talk about that and send light to that. We can look at the devastation of war. And in order to get into this conversation, because it's war, whether it's war of the Ukraine-Russian border, whether it's to deal with gun violence and drug violence, as our two countries learn how to work together. I understand from what I studied in history that there might even be a possibility that we were all one at one point, and that is an influence on how much energy is behind some people wanting to come where they will feel at home. But we're going to pull from this book entitled Loving Each Day for Peacemakers, Choosing Peace Every Day. It was written by John Roger, and he discusses it. So let me just share his reflection, and then I'll put it in context with the current issues. It says, traditionally, we've learned that when you yell louder than the other person does, you win, and then you'll have peace. Have you noticed that it doesn't work that way? That other person will wait for the chance to get back at you. Often when you're the most vulnerable, attacking your weakness and destroying what you thought was your peace. There are better ways. One of them is to let go of your position and look for ways you both can win. And then he actually poses a reflection question, or series of reflection questions, which I'll share with you quickly. What is a position that I am holding that is causing separation with another person? Wow, so that could be like just one-on-one, not even groups of people. What is a position that I'm holding that is causing separation with another person? What would it look like if I were to let go of that position? What would I do differently? Because don't we live life actually in the macro and the micro? Whatever is the big thing going on is also usually some of the small things going on. So what if we also took the approach that if we deal with it in the small within us, we can address those bigger issues easily? And then when we have these big things where, our government right now, we're sending millions or billions and billions of dollars to support a peacemaking effort that it in its design is rooted in war. And it's interesting that this is all happening, and this is off topic, but absolutely on it. I wonder, are there some statistics about how much money has been sent to other countries and regions to help restore their peace, but America has not yet made amends to the generations of families that were impacted by the atrocity of slavery, and why it's a question that came up actually since we're still in the news. The state of California said, or San Francisco recommended $5 million reparation and some other kind of things for every, slave. Let's look at it. Let's think about inflation. Let's think about the opportunities that were not had over years, hundreds of years, because of the idea that Black people were only 1/3 human, and how that still impacts us today. I think that this idea of reparations to bring peace, to healing, we did it with the Japanese internment camps, with the indigenous people, the Native Americans, and all of the land and the casinos that so many people that do that. I know most people that's on here that are watching this, they never go to a casino. But that they still had an opportunity to create wealth for their communities. And I'm not saying that it handles and heals all the ills and the results of the experience of basically being evicted and segregated into regions within this nation, but at least they had something. All the money we've sent, I won't name different places, but do we have that dollar amount? So how much is the value of Black life in America. And for those people that are still benefiting from generational wealth as a result of slavery. Remember, I told you all, my grandmother came over here by boat against her will when she was 16. So all these 6 generations, 7, my son, 8 generations later, what is being done to actually make amends? You know, as sorry is not sorry, unless you hit the words of what is Riley and Boondocks? Pay what you owe. Pay what you owe. And then let's cut it slate. And then we never have to talk about this Black-white race issue again. Reparations for every Black American seems like the godly thing to do. Let me just say that. Anyway, enough with that. Let's keep going. Let's talk about, I read in the news also that there had been there's been a series of issues dealing with emergency vehicles on the street. So here's my philosophy. Number one, I taught my son to, put out his hand and send light as if you're praying, like to give yourself pause when you hear a fire truck, an ambulance, or police car. These people are rushing into danger to keep us all safe. And it's important to honor that. So what can you do? When you hear a siren, pull over to the right. If you can, do it safely. As soon as if you're a good distance away and they're not there yet, like you see them 2 blocks behind you and you're driving straight, I'm not saying stop then. Of course, keep going. But because that's not going to help them get to you faster. Well, it will if you stop. But my point is, as soon as it's safe, as soon as it makes sense, pull to the right, stop, send light, send love, send your prayers. Just somebody's life could be hanging in the balance, and your prayer can make the difference. We need our emergency vehicles for it to work in the benefit of the community. And as a community member, it's your responsibility to stop and set an example. It could be your loved one or you that is in need. All right. So, I'm going to change the background again. And, fireside chats. Forget which president used to do fireside chat. I'm sure some of you watching probably know. But when it comes to dealing with the issue of homelessness, I believe it's time for a fireside chat. And who's at the chat? Who is being warmed by the fire of communication? And what revelations come as a result of this elevated thought? So just recently, I don't know if you've read it, but so there had been a lawsuit by an organization in terms of what LA and LA City and LA County was going to do in regard to the homeless. And there had been a proposal about, I believe, 13,000 beds. There's currently saying that we needed 17,000. But all of those things specifically are not as important except to know that if you are of the conscious mind to send positive thoughts, let's please send them behind Mayor Karen Bass. She's definitely taken on a tremendous task. It is going to take all of us. There's no one idea. There's no one solution. In fact, it's hundreds of solutions because there are hundreds of issues that lead people to homelessness. And so getting around that, if I'm sitting at the chat, let me just say that among those things, part of that lawsuit was what services would be available. And it goes to what I wanted to bring up today, um, that came forward the other day, even before I read the news today about this issue. And that has to do with what services are available. When you talk about what services are available, you also have to consider proper placement. So it's not just about getting the unhoused off the street. It's about where do they go? What do they do? Do you put a drug addict in a somebody dealing with substance abuse around a whole bunch of other people that are dealing with substance abuse? Like is that working in their favor? It may not be a choice initially. So even as it's designed, and I'm going to go with that for just a moment. So let's say you got some people that are addicted to heroin. Yes, you need to initially get all of those people kind of together so you have a thing, but immediately with the work of the caseworkers, case managers, social workers, what is it? The Department of Children and Family Services, DCFS, all of these people like instantly start getting those people away from each other. If I have a bunch of students, if I have a student that talks in class, I'm not going to sit them with all the students that talk if I want the student to do their work. But of course, they're all in the classroom, and there may not be anything I can do initially. But then I'm going one by one start moving people. We talk about proper placement. It's important to consider their level of reintegration into the house community and work things at levels. So people who are closer, that may not be dealing with substance abuse, they might have just lost their job, so on and so forth. Do we have the government engaging community homeowners? We could use a break, to put ADUs in there for those people that just need a stable place. It has to be limited, and ultimately, if somebody is taking that on, of course, it should be covered. And I know there's some programs like that, but do people really know about it? Are we taking clear advantage of that? Some people needing a place to call home. And how do we separate? How do we move it out? Or if somebody is saying, hey, do you want to go detox? Then there's facilities that are not immediately in the city that are taking up those beds. They're on the outskirts. They're a little further out. They're nice. It might be old hotels, motels, whatever, but they are available, not necessarily within the city. That person gets to go get clean, sober, and to come back and do something else. So that's just an idea of what does proper placement look like, and that strategy being included in the 90-day plan that is currently being worked on by the city of Los Angeles, and those involved with working towards this issue within the county as well. Now, also in this issue and in this vein, when I wrote the Moving Toward a Continuum of Care in Full Effect, Breaking the Cycle of Homelessness in Los Angeles in 1997, there was one recommendation for examination that I came up with, and said moving toward a continuum of care, communication, education, and socialization. Like 3, communication, education, socialization. What does this mean? Communication is the key to everything. It is how we connect to the past, to the present, and to the future. How we reach people across the world, in our backyard, in the next room, and ourselves within our own heart. How we teach people to eat, walk, talk, think, and take action. Now, education. The only thing that separates animals from man is man's ability to educate himself or herself, or become educated and influence the masses, while teaching his or her offspring to do the same, using written and verbal forms of communication. Now that sounds familiar, and I don't know if that's just a straight paraphrase, but what I just heard, this was 1997. So if I paraphrase someone and didn't say exactly, I'm not sure. But I just wanted to put that out there because what I just said was so profound. It's like, wait, did I say that in 1997? But it's important. Socialization. Socialization is the result of communication and education. Whatever we have been, have become, and are becoming are the results of the socialization process. Many people have we met, that you see grow up in certain circumstances, and you take one look at this super gifted, talented child who didn't have an investment in the arts, and you realize that they would have had a completely different trajectory for their life had they not been in the socialized community that they were born into. And that's another reason, by the way, of consciously leveling the playing field in this country. It benefits everybody, and there's going to still be the rich, and there's still going to be those that are at other levels. But the opportunity to make sure that everyone has access to arts, it shouldn't be based on whether or not your parent can afford to pay for lessons and so on and so on, while we are doing everything that we're doing and making a community decision. So when we're making a community decision to say, let's get these 17,000 people off the streets, or however many people are off the streets, what we are saying it as a community is that we are willing to pay their rent directly, or whether it's subsidized through Section 8. We're willing to do all of these things that our taxpayer money goes to. So we have to have a communication about that. What are the people that are spending these taxes? What are they getting out of it? I mean, just because, like Stephen Covey said, win-win. On the streets, they say win-win ain't no robbery. No, fair exchange ain't no robbery. That's the slang. I know it's slang, but fair exchange ain't no robbery. So what are the people that are at different income levels that are contributing to taking care of people that can't take care of themselves? What is the benefit that they are actually getting? Like, are they getting a tax break on their taxes because their taxes are going to take care of other people while they're working? It's just this is the fireside chat with Dr. Zelo. So let's just think about that for a minute. As somebody who, for all intents and purposes would be as an educator, as a teacher, because, in the spectrum of capitalistic America, teachers live in poverty. They just do. We make enough where we don't qualify for any real support, and not enough to get ahead. I mean, in fact, even once teachers retire after paying those student loans and everything all those years, they can only make so much, or it gets cut out of their retirement. So a commitment to being a teacher is a commitment if you don't have a spouse or some other generational wealth to provide for you while you live your dream of making a difference to inspire and educate and uplift and prepare the future to live a life of where's Peter, because I gotta pay Paul, and don't let me even think about talking about Matthew and Mark, because probably owe them too. I'll just wonder, is it, hey, if you're committed to being a public school teacher and you're doing it, should you have student loan? Should you have a student loan that you'll end up paying your entire career and after you retire to be a teacher? Just something for the community to think about when we talk about what we're doing to make a difference. Because if teachers have the resources they need, teachers will do what they always do, more than has ever been asked, but was needed because they saw a gap and jumped in to fill it. All right, so that's that. Now, last week, let's see. Last week, We talked about the first of the 7 habits of highly effective teens. Highly effective people, again, originally written by Stephen Covey, and then his son, Sean Covey, did some translation of it and made the language more invitational for teens. So in that, the second habit, so the first habit is be proactive. Understand the circumstance and situation. That's what Mayor Karen Bass, that's what she's been on the learning curve. She's getting to know. We already heard things. So now what can we do even from now? Because we can catch up and get ahead at the same time, which is why I'm just going to say it and say it and say it again. You don't break the cycle of homelessness on the street. That's too late. That's reactive. Being proactive means we break the cycle of homelessness in the schools by making sure that each young person, beginning by the time they know the basics in elementary school and arrive at middle school, from the beginning of secondary school, it's all about preparing that child for their proper placement as a hopefully tax-paying, if it means that the rest of us can pay less taxes, tax-paying productive member of society, because you can be a productive member of society without paying taxes. But if you want to contribute, the other need, then how can we make sure that you're making an income that can sustain you and your family so that you don't have to depend on the government resources, which are funded by, again, the taxpayers. So that's be proactive. Now, this second habit, it goes to the same thing. I love this second habit. The second habit says, begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. Control your own destiny, or someone else will, is the kind of subplot, but begin with the end in mind. So habit number 1 of the seven habits of highly effective people, teens, is to be proactive. And then the second one is begin with the end in mind. What is that? Somebody can do that in the terms of what do we make it? A vision board? That's to begin with the end in mind. When a student is applying for college and they have to do long-term goals, I mean, it might not be the end, but it's projecting into the future. But what if when we came to our community ills, whether it's locally, within the home, or globally, what do we want this end to look like? So imagine if we had a picture of where we want to go. Made me think about Walt Disney and the power of imagination. What if we began with the end in mind? What do we want? I used to have this crazy assignment as the teacher. I would do an assignment, the autobiography, and eventually I'll let you all know when, but I'm going to be doing some workshops because I've led hundreds of students through writing their autobiography, and I know we all have a story to tell and to share, whether we do it for ourselves, whether we share it with our family, whether we want to take it and do something bigger with it within the community, as in publish the book or publish a blog, or it might become a movie, or, who knows? But I'll let you know when I'll begin to do those workshops and how you can participate if you're interested. But so I used to have, because I work in option schools and I work with students who are in credit recovery and so on and so forth, I would often have the same students over and over again. So I couldn't just do the same assignment. So after the rocking chair assignment, I do something called, after the autobiography, I do something called the rocking chair assignment. And the rocking chair assignment is that they're 80 years old and they are in a rocking chair with children in front of them, whether it's their own or nieces and nephews, or they're volunteering at a community center or whatever, but it's children. And so they're in a rocking chair and they're talking to these young people and they're telling them about life after high school, everything they did. Now, interesting enough, we write the end of life stories in celebration programs all the time. You all know what I'm saying. I'm not going to use the word that starts with an O, but it's the story of a life lived. So by walking them through a process where they created everything, whether, the vision that they had, that to be 80 years old and look back at their lives, the choices they made, and then to turn around and present those things within the classroom. So powerful, so powerful. Begin with the end in mind. What does this solution look like? And I even suspect Steve Jobs just jumped into my head just like that. And so Steve, he was like, I want a super phone that bridges the internet that's on the computer with this, and people are able to take high quality pictures and they can message their friends, like, from AOL. Remember AOL was Messenger, and he was on the little keyboard phones. And I mean, just imagine everything that's productive. I want to go to the moon. So how can we begin with the end in mind? And if we're, and to go back again, since we're talking about like straight up, we cannot talk about the ills of our society without including those people that are holding it up. And that's one of the things in education over these last 23 years, public education in particular, over the last 23 years. And I'm going to say even though I'm speaking for all of those people that understand exactly what I'm talking about. How could I hold up others if the community is not holding me? So teachers, how can the teacher uphold and uplift the future if the community is not holding the teacher? See, this is integral actually as a part of that solution when it says begin with the end in mind, because we're going to break the cycle of homelessness. It's going to take the teachers. Take care of the teachers, you take care of everything. That's all I'm saying, straight up. I mean, that's just what it is. We do it or we don't do it. But enough of that. I believe you get the point. And last week we started talking from and listening to the wisdom of NBA legend, the late Kobe Bryant, and his everlasting contribution, to the work that must be done through his book, The Mama Mentality and How to Play. And I wanted to just briefly touch on the second thing that's in this section. So the section is on process. We talked about that last week, and how he decided to have no fear about making mistakes. He was willing to learn. He was willing to fall. He knew he would get back up, and he knew that when he got back up, he was going to be better than he was when he went down. And that's just how he rolled. The next thing in it, he says, I did biblical workouts. He said biblical. Yes, he did. He said, I started lifting weights at 19 when I got to the NBA. Nothing fancy, just basic, time-tested lifting methods that focused on strengthening one group of muscles at a time. Over the meat of my career, whether we were in season or it was summer, I would lift for 90 minutes Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. When I say lift, I mean heavy, hard, can't feel your arms type of lift. After that, I would go to the gym, into the gym, and shoot. Over the years, my routine might have changed, but my philosophy never did. If something has worked for other greats before you, if something has worked for other greats before you, and if it's something is working for you, why change it up and embrace some new fad? Stick with what works, even if it's unpopular. Stick with what works, even when it's unpopular. And that might be even repeating yourself over and over again. As a teacher in the classroom, if anybody studies communication, they tell you that people don't even begin to hear you till you say it at least 3 times. In the classroom, teachers know we repeat, we repeat, we repeat, we repeat. So if you find me repeating, I'm a teacher and I repeat myself constantly all day long. But I'm just excited to get a chance to share with you again as we move forward with Straight Up with Dr. C Love. We will be doing interviews and bringing some other people in to participate, some music. I wanted to share 2 actual clips with you, which is the pledge of success. I'm going to say it. I pledge allegiance to my success, to be the best person I can be. I see the wonderful soul present within me. When I look at the friends I choose, I see a reflection of me. Together we achieve. Together we reach victory. I pass every test. I'm the best of the best. I create my success. I am success. The Pledge of Success by Karma Chinyere, Dr. C Love. So I wrote this pledge. As a quick story, I'm going to tell you a little story. I love stories. Story time, teacher. So it was 2000. I was a substitute teacher at Locke High School. It was actually a design class, and the teacher was on leave because the teacher had been hit in the back of the head with some soap. Stop the violence against teachers. So I was there with the students, and it was at a time in America, in LAUSD, where the school still said the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag every day. And the students would be standing up, and, it'd be different levels of enthusiasm, like disenchantment with whether or not it actually represents everyone. So there wasn't overwhelming enthusiasm for doing it. And, now you look across the nation and it's not even something that is really done anymore, even though it's still the taxpayers in the nation that, is funding it. That's another conversation for another time. And why is this such disenchantment? But anyway, so I wrote this Pledge of Success so that the students could have something that they were committing to for themselves. So we have, I pledge allegiance to my success, to be the best person I can be. That line honors humanity, the fact that we're in this body, this incorporation, and then this corporal being, we're in the body. Then you have, I see the wonderful soul present within me. When we were born, we were 100% light. And as people of faith, if you are of faith, you know that the soul is not limited to this realm in a physical body. So I'm acknowledging that. It acknowledges that. When I look at the friends I choose, I see a reflection of me. I used to love that commercial. What was that? Who's in your 5? And I forgot who said it, but it was an educator. Professor, they said, if you look at the 5 people closest to you, you see everything you need to know about your life. And then that's not talking about immediate family, because we don't in this realm pick our family. But those people who we choose to be in our lives, what are they doing? It's a reflection. So when I look at the friends I choose, I see a reflection of me. It's an empowerment tool. Because you can shift what that looks like. look at the friends choose a reflection of me. Together we achieve. Nobody does anything by themselves. It takes you know, multiple human being or more than one human being to create another human being, however that ends up looking like. So we know that we need each other. So that's why even when I've had students over the years, they're like, I did it all myself. I'm like, really? You did? Okay. We need each other. So together we achieve. Together we reach victory. That's why I always tell my students, your success is my success. And so that means that your failure is a time for us to work harder towards success. And we failed on this issue that was presented to us in the mid-90s through Priority Home, the federal plan to break the cycle of homelessness. And we get to do better right now and consider all of us. But together we achieve, together we reach victory. I pass every test. I'm the best of the best. I create my success. And they love it when I explain how I know for some. I was like, do you know how I know for certain you're the best of the best? It's in your DNA. It took the best of the best to create you. The fastest, the most strategic life force had to get to the other life force and make you. So you are a product of the best of the best. And I create my success. Like faith without works is dead. So it takes action. So we have to be actively creating success. If we're sitting still, we're not moving, it doesn't happen. So we have to be busy. And you are success. I am success. Just as we are each love. And then I have a thought as I round this up, straight up. Bishop Noel Jones was Messenger for Life series book says, get started. Nothing can ever be achieved without a beginning. You have to start somewhere. And let me add to that. You don't have to decide whether it's the beginning, middle, wherever it is. You don't even have to know that. You just need to know that you are somewhere. So begin wherever you are and do the next best thing that you can do, which leads me as we're closing this out to something else from 101 Bible Promises, which actually comes from the book of Galatians 5:2, chapter 5, verse 22 to 23. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things, there is no law. Last but not least, I've got another treat for you. It was a project I did with some students. Just wanted, because the message is so profound. This young man, Jason, I call Jason. He's so gifted, so talented, writer, producer, everything. Like I was talking about earlier about, those people who are able to transcend circumstances to land in their proper placements. And I wanted to show him, it was a psychology class, and I wanted to show him that he had what it took to go all the way. And he was just so shy. So we decided to do a music video. You'll see me, I'm the teacher. And this young man, the name of this song is I Don't Even Know What I'm Thinking. And so he details, a conflict with his mother and actually even leaving home, like you can imagine, I'm grown, I'm a teen. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just giving you a picture a context with to consider. And so he's like, I don't even know what I'm thinking. And then he talks about how hard it is. And he asks his mother, can he come back home? So that's the dynamic of the lyrics itself. But what else is happening is me working with him to hold his head up high, to show himself to the world and say, I'm here. And it'll play out. Wherever it is that there are comments, I would love to hear what you think. And until next time, may love, peace, joy, and all good things abide now and forevermore. Straight up.
See, I don't even know what I'm thinking. See, I don't even know what I'm thinking about. Man, I'm dreaming, 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 dreaming. 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 Every day I'm daydreaming, day in, day out. Thinking about my life and how I took the wrong route. Getting back on the road. I'm sorry, mama, but can I please come back home? I can't do this alone. And now I know what it means to be grown. Feeling like I could be out on my own. But I got no job, ain't no place to go. Man, I hate that feeling of just being so broke. And man, like it ain't no joke. You the one who stepped on stage, so you better not choke.